Hello, welcome to the Institute. I'm your instructor, Douglas Johnson. And today I have a class that's about an hour long that focuses on opening up the hips and the spine, all set to a relaxing 432 Hertz ambient music soundtrack. If you enjoy this kind of content, please like, subscribe, comment, and share. And be sure to check out the Mahapatha Yoga Patreon page, where you can find lots of Yin Yoga extras. Enjoy your practice. Namaste. All right, so today we're going to start with a butterfly pose. We'll bring the soles of the feet together and pull them in, and our intention with doing that is to stretch the groin here, okay? And we'll come forward and down in a relaxed manner, and feel free to use support under your forehead or forearms. I don't recommend anything under the knees because we're trying to let the knees drop. You can, however, sit on something and that'll push you forward a little more aggressively. All right, and we'll be here for 3 minutes. All right, let's go ahead and make one small change. We're going to take the right leg out straight. Again, you can use props under the knee, the forehead, or the forearms. You can sit on something. And one thing I see a lot when I teach in person is people trying to grab this foot and pull themselves down. That's perfectly fine in a flow style class where you're there for about 30 seconds or even a minute maybe. 3 minutes, 5 minutes of doing that is not necessarily safe for your back. And when I say that, I mean over the long term. So doing this today, it's very doubtful that you will injure yourself. But getting into that habit and doing it over months or years, that is where one day you might wake up with a real problem in your back. So I do not recommend that approach. If this for some reason doesn't give you a stretch in the hamstrings that's suitable, then reach out, let me know, and I will suggest some alternatives to you, okay? Otherwise, again, we'll be here for 3 minutes. Okay, we'll switch sides. This is half butterfly. The stretch is in the back of the left thigh, the straight leg. Those are your hamstrings. Okay, rebound. What we'd like to do now is take your time, make your way onto your back, and before you counter stretch, just relax and feel into your body. Try and feel your muscles, your joints, and your bones. Okay, let's counter stretch. We'll bring the legs in and cradling the legs with our hands. We'll do some gentle movements to try and bring relief and balance to those parts of the body that were perhaps sent into imbalance through the last set of 3 postures. Okay, from here we will use the hinge, so hands under the hips, legs straight up. If there's pain in your back, you bend your knees, otherwise legs are straight. Lift the head and neck, lower the legs just before they touch. Inhale, legs up, and exhale up to seated. Now let's come into a kneeling position on the front half of the mat. You can sit on your heels, you can sit between the heels, you can sit on a block or 2 or 3. There are 2 areas that tend to be trouble or difficult for people in this posture. One is the feet. So your feet can point back, your feet can point out to the sides. You can place a blanket under the feet to add padding. You can roll a blanket, put it under your ankles so that the ankles do not need to straighten completely. The knees, if they are in pain, you can sit higher, which means a block or 2 or 3. You can also take your knees wider. Both of these will reduce the tension on the front of the knee there, okay? So once you have sorted your feet and your knees, you feel safe, maybe not completely comfortable, but safe. Then you want to see, do you feel a stretch in the front of your thighs? And if you do, I'm going to ask you to remain seated upright like I'm sitting. So this is already therapeutic. I'm just going to let that stretch out. However, if you do not feel that stretch, you can begin to lower back to your hands, your elbows, onto a bolster, onto the crown of your head, or all the way flat onto your back. And this is called full saddle pose. Okay. Now make your way out of the saddle pose onto your back and shift your hips to the right side of the mat. You want to keep this hip down. Okay, so sometimes when I teach this in person, people end up doing this, and that won't do anything for your body, significant benefit. So keep your hips down, and then with your arms overhead, the ground behind you, and your legs straight, you move your legs, your arms, your head, your neck, your shoulders, everything over to the left. And you want to feel a stretch here in your right waist, maybe down here in the hip, and maybe up here in your ribs, but mainly it's going to be here. All right, let's switch sides. So we come over to the left side this time. And then we move everything else over to the right. And remember, you keep going until you feel this stretch in your left waist and ribs. Does not need to be super intense, but you do want to feel it. Let's rebound. Okay, let's counter stretch. And hinge. Now we transition into a tabletop position for the bear pose. Things to try in bear are rolling your head and neck, shrugging your shoulders, moving your spine forward and back like cat-cow, and dropping your hips from side to side. You can combine these movements and you can repeat them. When you're done, you can tuck the toes, lift your hips, and come into down dog. In down dog, you can try things like rolling over your toes, circling the ankles, pedaling the feet back and forth, and even kicking your legs in the air. From here, we'll transition into a back bend. You have two choices here. The first is Sphinx. Propping yourself up on the elbows with your elbows under your shoulders. You want to feel some compression in your back. So a little bit of sensation back there. However, if you don't feel any sensation, then you'll need to go a bit further. And to do that, you simply straighten your arms and you come into seal. Okay? So we have a little bit of compression in our back. The head can be held up, drop forward, or drop back. The shoulders can be depressed or relaxed, and the legs can be together or apart. Again, we'll be here for 3 minutes. Okay. From here, we press back to tabletop and bring the right knee toward the right wrist and the right foot toward the left wrist. The hips are down and back, and you can either keep your torso up or bring it forward and down. You want to feel the stretch here in the outside of the hip. The right foot could be flexed or pointed, tucked under the left hip, or pulled up level with the left knee, or anywhere between those 2 points. This knee, the right one, can point straight ahead or angle out, and the hips can rock to the right, left, or be squared to the mat. You can place something under this hip if you like, but it is not incorrect or inherently dangerous to have the hip hovering above the ground like I do. Okay, switching sides. This is called Sleeping Swan. Let's rebound. Okay, let's counter stretch. And hinge up. Now we target the back, a gentle decompressive flexion of the spine. Again, I see it all the time when I teach in person. It's so tempting to grab those legs, pull yourself down. But I'm aware of 2 people who have injured themselves doing yin yoga. Neither of them were students of mine, and they both reported that that's how they hurt themselves. They were being very aggressive. They were trying to speed up the process of becoming more flexible, going further. Okay, it's not really what yin is about, going further, deeper, faster. That's more of a yang attitude. So all I can do is recommend it. I can't force you to do anything. Even when I teach in person, I don't force anyone to do anything. Try and just let gravity do the work for you. You can sit on something, you can bend your knees a bit if you need to, but I don't recommend pulling yourself down, okay? 3 minutes. Okay. Gradually unwinding onto your back. Bring your legs in and cross the right knee over the left and drop your knees to the left. Feel free to experiment with leg, arm, and head position to produce the best twist for your body, your anatomy. All right, let's switch sides. Okay, rebound. Let's counter stretch. And then at this point you have two choices. One is you can lay back down for an extended relaxation, a shavasana if you will. Or if you feel rested enough, you can get up and get on with your day. The rebounds between the postures essentially function as our relaxation. So you can do a long one at the end if you like, but you can also go ahead and get up. I want to thank you all for joining today. If you have any questions, please reach out. Otherwise, I hope to see you next time. Till then, namaste. Have a great day.